Hello and welcome. My name is Hemingway Jones, and today I'd like to share some tips and techniques with you on how to make your cursive handwriting even more interesting, compelling, and beautiful. And this is by using what I call a handwriting library. So what is a handwriting library? A handwriting library is a small journal that I use where I copy in examples of interesting and expressive handwriting from way back in the 16th century all the way up to current times. If I see an interesting bit of script, I want to capture it and refer to it later. And further, I've been using this in my own writing. So join me today, won't you, as I share with you how to use a handwriting library. Now let's begin, as we always do, with our tools. Today, I'm using the Montblanc 146, an absolutely beautiful, perfect proportion, very lovely, very expressive, and very importantly for our purposes, is this interesting and expressive calligraphy nib, basically a flex nib, that snaps back brilliantly and will do a fantastic job of recreating some of the strokes that a quill would use and other writing instruments all the way up to the current day. So this is an invaluable tool in our quest for interesting handwriting. Our next tool is the Esterbrook Write Your Own Story Journal, a very pretty journal, very nicely organized. I have it here. I would say that maybe you might want to use something different. It's not the best paper for fountain pens, so maybe you want a similar journal of similar size. I do like this journal, and I did start with it, so I'm very committed to it. But as I'll show you once we get into it, it's not necessarily the perfect journal when using fountain pens with flexible nibs and a lot of ink flow. Another tool that we will use today is this brilliant The Magic of Handwriting book by Taschen that has all sorts of examples of interesting and expressive handwriting from all sorts of individuals throughout the ages, from very different backgrounds and very different countries. So we have an absolutely fantastic static source to draw our inspiration from, because I am normally using things I find online in different document searches for historical documents. And sometimes your screen doesn't stay up, and it's a little harder if you're trying to emulate some handwriting, if your screen keeps moving around and if it's hard to keep the image static. But with something printed like this, it'll be rather easy, and it should make our exercise today that much more easy and fun and productive. My last tool for today is a cup of calming green tea to just keep everything copacetic as we go through this. So grab your favorite fountain pen, dedicate a journal, and let's start a handwriting library together. So here is my handwriting journal. I do like the size of this. I think it's a very pretty journal. I really like this page holder, but there is a bit of ghosting that you see through the pages when you really put down ink. So it might not be the very, very best, but it's not terrible. It is very nice paper in the hand. Here's some of that ghosting I was talking about. You can see it coming through there. It doesn't really detract. Now, strategically, what I often do is one side of the page I will use for different examples that I copy. And then on this side, I'm usually practicing something that I've seen within it. So here is an excerpt from a letter in 1940. This person had fantastic handwriting. Now, another bit about this is that I'm pretty good at copying people's handwriting, so I do my best. It's not perfect. Yours might not be perfect. Don't be too hard on yourself. The whole idea here is to find something really interesting like this E, maybe you want to adapt that to your style and to use it in your handwriting. You guys may have seen me do this little flourish which I found in letters like this from the 1940s. So don't be too tough on yourself. I feel like we all have a serious case of handwriting dysmorphia, where we feel like our handwriting is so brutally ugly, when in fact, cursive is intrinsically beautiful. So whatever you're doing, even if it looks like a readout from an EKG, as mine does at times, it is a very beautiful and expressive way of getting your notes and your words and your voice down on the page. So I am urging you, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't struggle with handwriting dysmorphia as I do, if you can help it. So here is a very beautiful T. One of the things I learned here is to use these in the beginning of a letter. It just sort of looks like a scribe. You know, back in the day of illuminated manuscripts, there was always that beginning letter that was usually in a box and surrounded by Celtic knots and coated in gold and red and blue, and it just really drew your attention to that beautiful page. I think similarly in the old styles of handwriting, you would get these letters that had incredible flourishing and loops and just beautiful proportion that just sucks you into where these things were going. By the way, this is a magnificent W. I am very much a fan of interesting W's. Okay, so here's a bit of handwriting from someone we know. And if you know Ernest's hand like I do, this is not a bad approximation of it. And you may have noticed that I've adapted my signature for the channel from the way Hemingway writes it as well. Look at this brilliant A. This is from Benjamin Franklin. So he had some magnificent handwriting, probably using an actual quill to write that, of course. Fitzgerald. This was probably written with some early fountain pen. I don't know which, but I will track it down one day. Beautiful M. Who wouldn't love that M? Here's William Morris. I am passionate about William Morris. I may have made his hand look a bit neater than it actually is, but he had a very thick line, very expressive, very beautiful. So I like that. Frederick Douglass had a great slant, a beautiful B, beautiful M. Look at that C. Exquisite. I just love those kind of details. And the idea is to find these details, to capture them, and put it in your toolbox of expressive writing that you might pull out at one point and put in a letter or a note to someone special. Look at this I. Isn't this brilliant? My daughter's name starts with an I. I might introduce her to this one day. She might really enjoy it. This is from a letter in 1723. Is it outdated? I don't think so. Wouldn't you love to get this kind of writing in a letter? I certainly would. And I have, to be honest. So you can see me practicing over here. This is another letter from 1940. I love how they run the words together. Here is an I connected to the H. I love to connect my words together. Here's some letters from the Gardner Museum. Beautiful stuff. I don't always do every word. That's one thing. If you do freeze some of these frames to examine some of this writing, it might not make complete sense. So I am copying certain words that I feel are valuable, certain letter shapes, but I might skip over some of the linking words, especially if I have written them down already, because you don't need 6 different examples of it. One will do. Look at this. Look at that. That is absolutely amazing. Love this H. Here is the late Queen Elizabeth II. She had a brilliant D, an incredible way of connecting her letters, sort of the tops, very lofty. I think that's appropriate. In a way you can read into people, can't you? By their handwriting. Bram Stoker, so interesting. Here's a very, very heavy-handed early 20th century document that I copied that I think is absolutely brilliant. Nice to take a moment and pause. Just relax, take it all in. It's quiet, it's early in the day, no one else is up. It's a nice time to practice your handwriting. And I took this D from Tom Wolfe. Tom Wolfe had fantastic handwriting. And this is when I was really obsessing over D's. I've since found one that I like, mostly. I still wrestle with it, but pretty great stuff. This also all letters from the 1940s. There's quite a few historic letters out there on the internet. This came from one of my viewers, Wilde, very amazing viewer that gave me, I don't know, what would you call this? It's almost like the letter form, sort of your model for French cursive, which I love so much I glued it into my book. So this is pretty great. Thank you so much, my friend. You're always so helpful. And here I was working on my signature. I wish I signed my name like this. I don't. If you saw my actual signature, it's more like a symbol than a signature. This is pretty neat too. I've actually adapted a version of this that looks a lot different. And then I go into Hemingway Jones here for some of my letters, which I really like. And of course, Queen Victoria, nice and big. One of the things that will help you here is to write large. So we're almost at the point where I am. Here I was doing some handwriting practice and working on this Julius Caesar speech that I am trying to memorize from Mark Antony. So that's a side project. But you can see as we go that there are some bleed through here. So that's why I say that this is a great book, but it's not really necessarily meant for such a heavy hand. Okay, now that you've seen what I've done, let me show you how exactly I do it. So here we have Oscar Wilde's handwriting. Very, very interesting. I really like how some of these connect. So I am going to try to emulate some of this and connect this and get it into my library that perhaps I will use this soon. So let's set it up and see how we do. It's always good to put who it is so you know when you're looking at it later, because you might want to find even more examples of their handwriting. Okay. Oh boy, he starts off strong with this D. And I think the stroke goes down first. So I think it's like this and then up. And then it's an interesting E that looks like a capital, but it's a small size. So I quite like that. And then an R that comes up and then trails off and goes right into the S, which I adore. The S sort of peters out here, but very, very nice. A T is simply a line down. There's an O that stands on its own. And then this K is interesting because I see a line that comes down and then it comes around like this. And then the T is crossed rather dramatically like that. And there's a, I guess this isn't an R. I thought it was an R, but I guess it's an I because it's dotted. Okay, not too bad. I think I'm doing a pretty good job of sort of, you know, a facsimile of Oscar Wilde's handwriting. And you certainly do kind of read into their strokes while you do it, which I think is part of this exercise and how it helps you. Now, here's an A I see all the time, and I'll do it on top here too. It's an A that comes around like this and then up. And that is very, very popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and of course, even now. So very, very interesting. A lot of words just trail off. He likes his eyes to stand on their own, which is an interesting strategy, and it certainly works to keep things interesting. Now, here's a T. The T crosses come here, and they come around, and that's pretty dramatic and interesting. I'm not sure what the rest of this word is. I'm actually going to skip it because to me, the interesting part is how this connects. Okay, so we're going to do a different I. He has a different I here. Curves around. Now this E dramatically comes up to the F, which comes down. This is really interesting. I think he's saying friend here. Not quite. Oh, you know, I think he goes up and almost does a capital D here. That is really interesting. If you see that, it sort of ends like a capital. I really like that. I almost bungled it. I almost missed what he was doing, but I got it at the last minute. Now, this is really interesting too, because he does his 2, and then he goes right into the T here, and then this comes here and the H comes down like this. I would probably do it differently where the T would go to the H and I would put down the cross stroke. But you know what? There you have it. Pretty interesting. Now here's something else interesting. I think the D comes down like this and then it makes an R that just drops off the line. It's just a strange R that just is totally disconnected from reality. But pretty interesting, I think. So I'm looking at the rest here. There's some really interesting stuff here I'd like to pick up too. Here's a different D on the word could. So it comes like this. And then the D comes around like that. That is brilliant and interesting. I really, really like that. And then he writes B kind of like this here, which I like. And we're getting into EKG territory. His Y just sort of trails down. Pretty interesting. But I see something I really like, and that's his B. His B is pretty dramatic. Very, very interesting. So it comes down, goes up, down tight, and then around with a little kind of end there. And then he finishes the word. So very, very fun to kind of get into the mind of the person that is making these letters, how they're forming their strokes, how they do things. His R's are always sort of dropping off the line dramatically and interestingly. Very, very strange. I don't think I will be adapting that, but I quite like it. And here's his signature, evidently, which is very strange. I have a feeling that it might not be his only signature, because I imagine it might have been a little more expressive, but I could be wrong. I've just never seen it. So it looks like this. You guys are seeing this too. I missed my stroke there, but that's okay. Never be too hard on yourself. And there you go. So what did I learn from this? What do I like from this? I love this D. I love how the S connects. I'm going to do that. I love the connecting here between to and the, although I'll always take it to the H. I love to be here. I love how it slants. It's almost like a ship that's listing. I quite like that. I really like his signature, although I wish he did a more demonstrative O, but hey, it's his signature. Who am I to criticize? This B is really interesting and probably worth emulating. I'm going to give that B another shot. I think I did okay, but I could probably do better. So, no, maybe I can't. I think the first one looked better. But there you have it. And now I'm going to take on another example of handwriting. Okay, our next example of handwriting is Ada Lovelace. She is a fascinating person, a genius mathematician that set the framework for binary computer coding way back in the early 19th century. Of course, she was the daughter also of Lord Byron and had just one of the coolest names ever, Ada Lovelace. Gotta love it. But she also had an incredible hand that I believe is worthy of our study and attention, and probably has some things we may like to adapt to our own handwriting. Now you're probably noticing I'm not posting this pen. I just don't want to scratch it. You certainly can if you prefer. I don't feel like I need to. I am a reformed poster. I used to post everything, even if I needed to duct tape them together. But now, I don't know, I'm more comfortable. It's light, it's easy to move. I like it. You know what? I may actually write on this side a bit just to make it easier for the camera and for you watching at home. You can see some of the ghosting here. Not a big deal, but definitely something. Okay, so what do I see that I really like? This eye. Do you see this eye? It's magnificent. So I am going to grab this eye as soon as I can. Oh yeah, comes down, comes up. You know what? I may have got that backward because I'm looking at how big this stroke is. I think it may have gone down, up and around. I think that's a much better representation. But see, this is the process. This is how you learn. You sort of feel your way through their style. Her W is very interesting. It's a bit loopy, but it goes with a nice kind of rhythm. I'm a little heavy-handed compared to her, but still, I still like it. All right, I see some other things too. Look at this Q. This Q is really interesting. It comes around like this. It comes down and goes up. And that is very, very cool. And I don't like to use the word cool because it's not very descriptive, but I quite like that. Okay, here's an interesting H. I feel like there's a little loop that's sort of lost. That she's coming down on her own loop and then comes around like this. And I'm not quite sure what that word is. I can't tell if that's an ER, like hearty, or EA, but we're going to leave that and jump right to this the. I love thes, and this is a good one. Oh, and by the way, there's an ink smudge and another ink smudge. I don't know if that happened later, but look at that. If Ada Lovelace can do it, don't be hard on yourself when you do it. And by the way, here is a loop in that H, so I was definitely right about that. So beautiful T, kind of crossed completely over. Lovely way of writing the. I also like the way she writes is. So it's almost like one letter that comes around and then up. Ooh, I didn't do that great here. Let's try that again. So it comes out and then here and then up. There you go. I feel better about that. It's okay. It's a process. We do some good stuff and we mangle some other stuff. I'm not sure what this says, but this is a very nice A. Very nice A. Comes around into an L. It might say although, actually. And I'm only saying that because it's on the crease. But very interesting A that comes around like this rather than, wow, mine looks like a G. I think I need to give it more body. There we go. It'd probably be a little better if you closed it. But I do like that A. I am a bit partial to mine. They come up like this and come around. But, you know, she did have an A in her name, so she knew what she was doing. She was definitely doing it the way she wanted to. Here's an M. Very dramatic. Up. Down. Up again. Down. Loopy. And then the A's don't quite match here. Oh, but an absolutely brilliant Y comes down and then out. Oh, I love that. I feel like this is so 19th century with these Y's that don't loop like ours do, but kind of just come down and hook back up. It looks so cool. She's doing it here again. So expressive and interesting and individualistic. I adore it. Wow. And you see it over and over again. So she's doing quite a bit with those. I want to see her Fs. I bet her Fs are brilliant. Just need to find one. Let me see. I know there's one here. Ah, here we go. Oh, this is brilliant. I am so glad I searched for this. Look at this. Look at this of the. This is going to be such a great lesson for us. A bit of a compressed O. Very flat. Hers is so flat it looks like one line, like this. And then it comes up. Begins your F, very disciplined F, that then comes up, and where does she end off? I think it goes into the T like this, and then up into the H, and then around a little tiny trailing E, and then a beautiful cross T. I really like that. That is very, very interesting. I'm going to try it again. I like it so much. So it comes up. plunges down. And then the T, the H, the E, and then bam. Isn't that something you can use in your writing? I know I will. I love it. I love it so much. Here's an interesting sum, an S that comes up, an O, and then another one of those M's and a round. Absolutely brilliant. Wow. So much to capture here. I'm going to do this W, and then I'm going to try to restrain myself by just copying this entire letter. That's a great W. Maybe a little bit more down, but still absolutely brilliant W. So Ada Lovelace has a lot to show us in her handwriting as well. I'm going to bookmark this. I'm going to revisit it, but it's so much fun. I just want to say a few words on how to adapt this. So as you can see, this is a technique for drawing out the interesting bits of other people's handwritings and adapting it to your own to see how you might like to write someone else a letter in a very expressive and interesting way. So you are becoming a bit of a human Xerox machine, if you will, copying it in, but I think it's important that you do your best to emulate these strokes because you're going to learn your way through them, as I have today with Oscar Wilde and Ada Lovelace. I got inside their head in regard to their penmanship, and it was an interesting journey to take. So I am sure you can use this in your own handwriting. So what do you think of my handwriting library? Is this a project you would like to take on? Let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate it. And if you really like this video, please also share it with someone else who you think might enjoy this kind of content. I'd love to have them with us. I also have membership available if you'd like to support the channel even more. So please like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I make new videos all the time, so we will see each other again very, very soon, further up the road. So take care of yourself, and thanks for watching.